Okay, well, the first thing I'll say is a big welcome to everybody, and thanks for logging into the webinar this evening. We're calling this a team culture, how to create a positive team culture webinar. And look, I suppose from my point of view, what we want to do is get across that there are different ways to do it. It's not a one size fits all answer for every club and every team setting. But what we hope is that everybody will come away with 2 or 3 tangible points that they can take with them and maybe help inform their practice with their clubs or counties or whoever they're with. The first thing that I should do is introduce myself. My name is Johnny Gardy. I work for Fermanagh GAA as a county coach, and I'm the current Fermanagh Ladies Senior Football Manager. I've created the following webinar or seminar based on my experiences, both academically and my coaching practice and managerial practice on the ground. I suppose academically, I've studied up to master's degree level in sport and exercise science, with a major focus on coaching. So we would have covered building positive team cultures quite a lot in university, and then it's something that I've had the luxury of trying out and developing over time with the various teams I've been managing. Something that I place a huge premium on and something I'm very passionate about. Now, in any given setting, of course, you want to gain something of an advantage on your opponents, and be you an under 6 coach or an under 16 coach or a county manager, whatever it might be, I think that rings true. And I would look at then the overall picture in terms of your your sports science, your strength and conditioning, your dietary and lifestyle requirements, all different ways to gain percentages here and there. I would look at team culture as a really, really good way to gain an advantage on other managers out there or other teams out there trying to do something that maybe isn't common practice. And that's the way I would look at team culture. For me, team culture is the foundation that everything else is built on. Having a positive team culture is your foundations, and you can build your walls and your roof through your strength and conditioning, your tactical and technical elements. But in times of difficulty and adversity, ultimately it's going to be your team culture that will be tested, and it can be the difference in winning and losing, and it can be the difference in learning from losses and not learning. So it's absolutely massive. Okay. I suppose my expectation tonight is to keep the presentation reasonably succinct and on point. Hopefully then everybody will get a few take-home points or tips, and you can apply those. I'll also hopefully have a bit of time at the end for some question and answers, and I'll provide as well my phone number and Twitter handle, and you can contact me if there's any other supplementary advice or help that you require. So we'll crack on. Just the order of the webinar, I suppose, is the first thing to touch on. What we're going to do is I'm going to give you an overview of what we cover first. That's what we'll be doing now. After that, we'll go through the theory and logic behind each step of the way. I'm going to finish off with giving you an example of how to implement a team culture based on probably my most recent experience of doing so with the Fermanagh Ladies team. So I'll be touching on a few of the presentation slides and some of the general points that we work on with the girls. And then from there, we should be maybe 30, 40 minutes through, and it'll be an opportunity then to ask a few questions. So we'll get started. Firstly, the points that we're going to go through is we're going to work through what is team culture, what constitutes team culture, why do it, and what's the benefits of it. So firstly, the what is, why create a team culture is the next topic that we'll touch on. Then who is included. So is it all encompassing, or is it only for certain people? Is it just a managerial thing? Is it a players only thing? We'll discuss who's included. Finally, how we implement it. Okay, so firstly, what is team culture? Now, everybody will have their own idea of what team culture constitutes. They'll have their own particular values, and it's a very, very personal thing, and it's a collaboration. So that's the first thing. Team culture isn't something that's easily defined, because it's going to be different from team to team. It's going to be shaped different, but from manager or coach to coach. So there's no easy way of answering that. But what I have put down here is that it's the agreed standards and values to which players and management adhere. Okay, so that very much is what it means to me. At any point, then, players or management can use this as a roadmap from where you started out to where you want to go to, and that's the team culture and how you want to go there. First thing to be really, really clear about is a team culture already exists. So I'm going to be talking mainly about a team setting, but there is obviously the overview of a club and how to sort of work your team culture between different age grades and different teams and have a club culture. So the two things aren't completely distinct from each other, and we will touch on how best to try to marry up the different teams within one setting. And I think there's a really good question already submitted as to, what's the youngest age a team culture can take, grow from or implement in. So we'll touch on that at the end if we haven't already covered it before then. But the first thing to be really clear about is that a team culture within any team already exists. The fact that perhaps that you haven't been working on it or that you haven't been conscious of it doesn't stop it from existing. And in any given team, the likelihood of it being a negative team culture increases hugely if you're not aware of it. So if there's a culture there, it hasn't been touched on, you haven't been working on it, you haven't been trying to develop it into a positive thing, then there's a very real likelihood that there's some bad habits there, that there's been negative input from players, or there's negative personalities that have been allowed to prevail over time. So the fact that you aren't aware of it or you haven't been consciously working on it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Every single team has got a culture of some sort. It might be a culture of hard work, it might be a culture of laziness, it might be a culture of selfishness or selflessness. Whatever it entails, it's already there. So take ownership of it. That's what this is all about tonight. Take ownership of it and drive it in the direction that you want to drive it into. I can't, and I'm not going to aim to give you your values or standards to which you want to apply, but I'll give you some examples of what I've done. So it should reflect the training environment in which players and management want to work in. That's the first thing to be clear about. That you should have standards in mind as to which, do you want a learning environment where players are inquisitive and aren't afraid to make mistakes, and if so, those should shape your values and shape your actions. So whatever values you want and whatever environment you want to work in, then those are the standards and values to which your team culture that you're developing should encourage. It can reflect club and parish or county themes, so you can make it very individualised, and it will be individualised anyway, because you and your players are going to have individual values that are individual to you, that'll shape your team culture. But you can shape it even further and individualise it even further by shaping it around your club and what your club stands for and what your club means in your individual setting. I'm saying club, it could be your county, it could be your parish, whatever it might be. You can individualise it around that shared belief and what the jersey means to people and what the crest or the football pitch or the parish means to people. So it's very important that you bring that into it. Okay, why create a team culture? Firstly, I've just put that in because it's a very good demonstration of how training can be one thing and matches can be another, and this would be a real value of mine, that you have to get the level of your training, the intensity of your training to the right standard first and foremost, and once that happens, then you're ready to compete. But without that happening, matches might come and shock your players. So we can use a team culture to ensure that you're working at that right level. As it says there, under pressure, you don't rise to the occasion, you sink to the level of your training. So that puts a real onus on ensuring the level of your training is sufficient. And for me, ensuring that the level of the training is dictated to by the team culture will ensure it'll never really dip that low, that the players are aware of the standards required. Okay. Clear, concise guidelines to ensure optimal environment for progression. So that's quite vague. And I must say at this point in time, everything that I'm going through now will seem quite vague. It's only when we go to the implementation phase of this presentation that some of these quite abstract theories will start to really take root and make sense. But within this particular bullet point, clear, concise guidelines to ensure optimal environment for progression. I'm sure everybody, regardless of what level they're coaching or managing at, want an environment of progression and that your players improve. In order to ensure that that is the case, it should be ingrained in your team culture that the guidelines are clear and concise, driving the thing in the right direction. So that's something to make sure is inbuilt within your particular values and standards to which your team culture is built towards. A collaboration of high standards and shared values. The first word there, collaboration, is absolutely key. This isn't, and we'll probably touch on this now very shortly, but this isn't going to be a manager's own vanity project. It isn't going to be something that's forced upon players. It's a collaboration between players and management and everybody involved in the team. That's absolutely key to ensuring that this runs smoothly, because you have to give ownership of it to the players. The day that you stand in front of the players and preach to them, this is what we're doing, I don't care if you're in it, if you like it or not, this is what you're going to do, is the day you're going to lose players. But if it is the case instead that you're giving them the ownership of the culture, where they're driving it and you're facilitating it, then it's their culture, it's their standards, it's their values, and it's a shared thing that they're driving. And once you give players the ownership of it, the buy-in is huge. It's much better than trying to force something upon them. The other thing to be really aware of, I would say this in club and county settings, that the high standards that we're trying to implement here, and it mightn't be the case all round. You might be putting in a more social football team. It might be a junior team or a reserve team, or it mightn't be the most serious thing in the world, but you want to give people a place that they can come and have fun, and that's absolutely fine. But if it is that you are trying to create a really high standards and a high level of learning, a learning atmosphere, then you have to accept before going into it that high standards aren't for everybody, and people will opt out and you will get resistance. I put here, embrace the resistance. It's really important at this point in time to say that when you create a team culture, you're going to get buy-in from people, but very, very likely you will get resistance from others, and you have to make peace with that early on. And if it is a really a high level, high standard atmosphere that you're looking to build, I would say come to peace with the fact that you're probably going to lose some players, because high standards aren't for everybody. So that's something that we'll touch on later on. Okay, build the standards to which the future will be shaped. So you have to ask yourself first and foremost, and most importantly ask the players, where do they want to go? Where do you want to go? What are you trying to achieve in this setting? And from there, and that honest and a question should come good, honest answers. And if it is the case that they want to be successful, however they deem success, if it is the case where they want to And if we reduce success now to simply winning trophies for the sake of this point, if they want to go and win trophies, then simply wanting it isn't enough, because everybody wants that. So what you have to do is you have to create a roadmap to success. So you've got key performance indicators along the way. So for instance, you're going to give yourself the opportunity to be successful and win trophies if you get commitment, discipline, a good level of fitness, a good tactical game plan, and technical ability, a strong mindset. So if you put all of those things together, what standards do you need to put in place for that to happen? So the standards are perhaps that you arrive on time, that you work really hard, that you're honest with your peers and with your management, that you have a positive outlook, so you're not just going around moping and complaining and bringing everybody down, but you're an energy giver rather than an energy vampire, as they're called. And once you put those standards in place, then those are the standards which will shape your future if you adhere to them. And what we want here within a team culture is that everybody agrees to do that. They agree what the standards are, they agree to do it, and then they go and do it. And if they fall short of those standards which they created, then you can say, you know what, you've fallen short. Remember, you created these standards and you've fallen below those standards now. And then that should give them the roadmap to getting back within the team culture again. And if it doesn't, it certainly gives you the roadmap to deal with the indiscrepancy, because you can say, you know what, you agreed to these principles. In fact, you created them. So, there's no ambiguity in terms of how you can deal with it. Then you've got a form of recourse, which is really useful. So who is included? I've put down here, the first thing I've put down is an opportunity to show appreciation. And I think that's really important. In a team setting, you're going to have service providers, and they're becoming more and more diverse and larger in the amount of them within certainly elite Gaelic football, but right throughout into club football, even at the most grassroots of levels. So what I mean by that is that it's not unusual now for a senior club team to have a statistician or performance analyst. They indeed will have a masseuse or a physio, possibly both. They could have a kit man, and it goes on and on. It goes on and on. So the first thing for the team culture, the first thing that it can do is be all-encompassing, and it's an opportunity to show appreciation. And that is such a really important tool. For these people to come in and give up their time, and in a lot of cases to do so voluntarily, is really, really, it's important to show that they're appreciated within that setting. So this gives you the opportunity to do that. I wouldn't dream of creating a team culture and not including absolutely everybody within our managerial and backroom team in it, as well as the players. And I think that's the first real point for me, because you want a shared ownership of this, and it's very difficult to get a shared ownership if you're talking about the 25 or 35 players, and you're leaving out the people that make it possible for them to go onto the field and express themselves. So, for instance, if you were doing a team culture and you left out the kit man, that would already set a really bad example in terms of, well, they don't matter, or they're not included in this. It's just about us. We're more important than them, putting one above the other, and that's the wrong message straight away. So for me, it's very much a case of showing that, look, without the kit man, there's no game. There's no team wearing this jersey that we all have so much pride in. So the kit man is very much vital to the whole operation. And the same token that the physio allows people to stay on the field, or gets people back off the physio bench and back into the panel quickly. So we can't do it without the physio. They're absolutely vital to our operation. And so it goes, right from the whole backroom staff, and really importantly, through the squad. So you can't differentiate between, look, in a club setting, you'll get the guy with the unbreakable spirit who maybe doesn't have the best ability in the world but is at every training session. and deals with the disappointment of not seeing any game time, but is there year after year. You have to make him or her equally as important as your star forward, for instance. In the realization that without these people at training working the rest, there is no team. Without the the subs that in any given day who could come on and finish the match and get us over the line, or that are putting the starting players standards through the roof because they're working them at training and keeping them on their toes, or their goalkeeper who is the person responsible for the kick out to the wing half back, and the cornerback is the person that supports that winner of primary possession and helps transition defence into attack, or the midfielder who covers their run, or the forward who sets up the score. Everybody is absolutely vital, and as vital as the next person in the line, and that's something to ensure that you get absolutely nailed within your team culture. So an opportunity to show appreciation and bring everybody in and create something bigger than any one individual or any even idea or ideal. It's something really special and tangible that everybody encompasses it within. So that's just what I'm touching on, is the second point there, the collective before the individual. So individuals don't come into it. Ego is really is a big problem within a team sport, and I think everybody here will appreciate that within a team sport you will have egos, but it's really important to ensure that they are working within an agreed culture rather than them being above any other individual. So this is a mechanism to ensure that their ego can be a positive thing as opposed to a negative thing. Everybody is a cog in the machine. We've certainly touched on that. Right, this is a massive point, and I've alluded to it up to now, but I want to really drill down into this one. It must be player-led. Management stroke coach stroke coaching officer, whoever takes this on within your setting, they're the facilitators. I would count myself within the Fermanagh ladies team as a facilitator of our team culture. I allow it to develop. I make sure that it's at the forefront of her mind, and I certainly help constantly try to redefine it and make sure that it's emphasized on a regular basis, and that's my role. But I don't create it, and I suppose there's a misleading title to this webinar, in that we're not creating a team culture, we're cultivating one. We're trying to make sure that it's a player-led organic thing, and it never stops. It'll change, it'll evolve, but it never stops. So the important thing is that it's player-led. The players create it, and when the players can create something, then it gives them ownership of it, and they have to then not only adhere to the levels and standards and values to which makes up the actual team culture, but they have to protect it, and they have to fight for it on a daily basis. And sometimes they'll fight for it and protect it against their teammates. And it's that day that your team culture is strong. The day that your teammate, one of your players, say to their teammate, "That's not how we do things here." That's when you know that the team culture is ingrained within the group. It's not going to be ingrained in the group when you're preaching at them. It's going to be ingrained in the group when they take it on board. Now, I'll give you a good example. We had spoke, this was very early on in my managerial stint with Fermanagh ladies, but we had spoke about team culture. We had implemented some values and rules, for want of a better word, and the girls had signed up to these rules. But had the values truly been ingrained in the players at this point? Probably not, because it's not just a quick fix. It's something that's improved upon over time. Within the changing rooms, one of the rules that we had was that you wear Fermanagh gear, and if everybody's given training gear, and you wear that gear. If you're warming up at training, things like that. If you're warming up before a match or at training, you're wearing your Fermanagh branded gear. I think at this stage we had brought in a few extra players. They hadn't received their training gear at this point, so they were in the change rooms. I think it was one of the first National League games, and before they had left the change rooms, and this was told to me afterwards because obviously in ladies sport we are not in the change rooms all the time like you might be in a same-sex setting. So we were outside as a management. We were outside the changing rooms, apart from a player liaison officer, female officer, who was inside, and it was her that told us that one of the senior players had seen that the new girls were leaving the change rooms wearing some club gear, and she stopped them and said, "That's not how we do things here." And she said, "Between us all, there's enough gear to ensure that everybody's wearing the county colours, the county crest." So girls went into their bags and threw out a few tracksuit tops that were spare, and everybody went out together. And that was team culture in action. That was somebody protecting the standards to which we had agreed. And it was fantastic to see that happen at that point in time. And that's only one example. So that's an example of it actually in practice. Okay, here's the interesting bit. Hopefully, here's the points that you can actually try to start to apply in your own settings. So how do we implement it? First things first, and again, this is how I done it. There's no right or wrong to this, and you're going to do it a different way. And even if I, allowed somebody to come in and shadow exactly what I've done over the course of the last 2 years with my particular team right now, you would take away the points. And if you tried to implement exactly what I done, you couldn't. You would implement it your way because you're a different person than me, and it might be better, it might be worse, it might be more effective, it might be less effective, but that's not important. What is important is you have to be yourself and take this whatever way you want. This is what worked for me. First thing I tried to do is establish buy-in through a team culture introduction. So I set up a little and I'll show you a slide from this in a few minutes, but I set up a little PowerPoint presentation for the girls, and I introduced what team culture is and what it's all about. At that point in time, then, at least they knew what we were trying to achieve in creating our own team culture. So they had knowledge to the benefits of what a team culture can provide to them, or an effective or a positive team culture can provide them. So they're not starting from scratch. Then after that, at a different meeting, because it's certainly important not to overload them, but we had a workshop more than a meeting. We had a workshop where we brainstormed. This is actually creating our own team culture now. We brainstormed values within this workshop, values that the girls wanted themselves. It's, again, if all I done was stood in front of them and said, "This is what I want. I want you to do this. I want you to do that. And that's the way it is," then you're going to meet with more resistance than you need to. So instead, give them ownership of it. So, for instance, in brainstorming values to which they want to adhere, you're guaranteed that they're going to give you the majority of the things you want anyway. So, for example, whenever we done brainstorming values in a team meeting, they come up with things like, that you're there on time. That's what I wanted, but they said it, so now it's their value, not mine, and they're much more likely to adhere to it. And if they don't, you've got a form of recourse where you can go back and say, "Look, you created this. Why are you always late? This is your value. Why are you always late?" So it's really, really effective tool. So within that meeting, we brainstormed lots of different values. I've got a photograph of what we come up with at the end of it. But what we done was, I give the girls, well, actually, I tell a lie. The first time we done it, we done it 2 years ago pre-season, and we done it on flip chart paper, and they wrote down lots of different values, and then that formed the code of conduct which we created, which in essence is some bullet points which encapsulates our team culture, and then they signed it. So that's what we done. The second time round, when we were refining our team culture and we were trying to maybe condense it a little bit and make it more tangible, I give the girls post-it notes, and they write down the really, really important things to them. And then we put the post-it notes into categories, and those categories
actually made up our code of conduct. Now that might make very little sense to you at the moment, but it will in a minute when I show you the photograph. So as it says here, leading to the establishment of a code of conduct stroke agreed standards. Now, I don't know what you want to call this. A code of conduct, I think, is what we called it. You could call it, shared values, agreed standards, your rules, or whatever you want to call it. What it is the standards to which you want the girls to play to or adhere to, the standards which they identified themselves, and it's all in there in writing, and then from there they sign it, and you've got then is a document that's really, really powerful because it's up to them. From there, management, or whoever it might be, it's management in my setting, that reinforces the standards regularly. And this is absolutely key. As a manager or a coach or a coaching officer or whatever you are in your setting, you have to be the absolute height of adherence, and you have to live and breathe the standards and the values to which you've agreed. You are the pinnacle, and you are the person that they'll look to. And if you're telling them, look, you have to show positivity at all times, and you're the same person that's going to go and shout expletives to the referee, then that is a huge you're undermining everything that you've done. So that will be a huge problem. So you have to be the embodiment of the code of conduct yourself. So reinforce the standards regularly through your behaviour, absolutely, but also through your coaching as well, and your input to the group of players collectively and individually. You never stop with this, and there should be enough scope. We're talking about a range of different things, be it body language, be it work rate, be it general positivity, whatever values that you've brought in, humility, honesty, all of these really, really good things that you can then apply and make the players live up to. And then via training, of course, you do that, and workshops. So we would use as a really effective tool, we would be sort of maybe 2-3 times over the course of the season, we would drop into a wee half an hour, 40-minute, or the girls might tell you an hour or an hour and a half workshop where you're touching on these things over again, unpacking what it means, what the team culture means, reinforcing the points, making it real for them. So what we done was what absolutely fantastic last year, was we created some scenarios on a piece of paper. So for instance, we said things like, if you were something that's likely to cause a problem. So if you were taken off in the first half and you thought you were playing well, what do you do? And you put that inside an envelope, and you have 5 or 6 different scenarios, 5 or 6 different envelopes. Get the girls into little groups, give them an envelope each, and have them discuss within the groups what they would do in any given scenario. So it comes round then to the one where they were taken off early, and the girls have feedback to you what they think they should do. So look, according to the code of conduct, of course, what we have to do is show respect. We give respect and we get respect, and there's mutual respect between management and players. That's part of our values, and I'm sure it'll be part of your values. So within that, the girls then come up with the answer, which was, look, we know that there's a range of reasons why the management may have made that decision. It might have been a tactical thing. It might have been trying to counteract something the opposition is doing. And it might be nothing to do with me personally. And either way, I can receive feedback at a later time, but I'm going to go off the field in a positive manner, and I'm going to show the manager respect. I'm going to keep my head up and give energy to the other players that are still out there. Something like that. And that would be a brilliant answer. And you're reinforcing that so that if ever the scenario does happen, that it's more likely that you're going to have a positive outcome. Something I should say at this point is, it's not guaranteed you're going to have a positive outcome. This is not a one-size-fits-all
solve every problem thing, but it does give you the best chance of minimizing those sorts of problems. And then, of course, it gives you that recourse to fall back on if problems do happen. So you can say, look, this isn't part of our team culture that you agreed to. So it's really useful. Refine, refresh, reinforce. Now, like I told you with the wee scenarios that we set up there, that was an opportunity to refine and refresh and reinforce our values that we had already established. But establishing them isn't enough. You've got to keep going over them and making sure the girls look at it from different ways, unpack it, and then maybe even hit it from a different angle, like these scenarios do. They give you the problem, and you have to use your culture to solve it. So there's loads of different ways to do it. Now, I'll just show you this. That slide is the values to which, and the non-negotiables, as we called it, to which the management wanted to bring in. So these are things that we told the girls that these are non-negotiable from our point of view. They have to form part of the team culture. But we only showed them this after they had their input, and we found that the vast majority of them were already, they were already brought up by them. They have already done that. So, for instance, the third one down on the left-hand side there, it says champions are never outworked. They already identified that their work rate has to be through the roof. So that's their one. So I've already said, look, we're on the same page. Be coachable. They actually used the same words. They said they want to be coachable. They want to learn. They want to, benefit from our experience and become better footballers. So all of these things, and then some of them are more unique to the management as to what we wanted to establish within our setting. So, for instance, we had running technique there. We wanted to ensure that we done a little bit of biomechanics with them first to ensure that they were running economically, so that we were getting the best out of them that way. Tackling technique, intensity, kicking technique, and rewarding runs with good kick passes. All those things had to be up to a good level and our game plan revolved around them. So they were non-negotiables. And then a couple of the ones at the bottom there in terms of transitioning and defending and things like that. Those are the way we wanted to play. So we made that part of the team culture. So the two things are inexplicably linked, which is really, really powerful. Now, when I talked about a couple of slides to introduce team culture to the girls, this is what we talked about. We give them some hints. We scaffolded it for them so that they were aware of the sort of things that they could say later on, and give them a wee push in the right direction. When we talked about mindfulness, respect, passion, we wanted to achieve an environment where it was fun. We wanted to create a real togetherness within the squad. Accountability, where they were able to take feedback, be it negative or positive, but they were accountable for their own actions, and they could hold their hands up and take it in the chin and then try to improve. That the pride was part of it. All of these things, and then more sort of tangible things in the middle there, things like clean changing rooms and buses and things like that. We wanted that. We wanted the team culture to demonstrate its way and show itself in how we came across from the outside looking in as well. Personal issues stayed at the gate, but it's really, really important. That one is tempered by the fact that we had a very much a player first and player welfare led ethos, where if at any point in time that the girls had any issues whatsoever, that we were available and that they could come to us, and that we were holistic in how we dealt with players, individuals. We knew that everybody's different and everybody gets to be treated differently and individually and with respect. But when they come to work, they're coming to work. Okay. Yeah, look, I could go on, but that's an example of what we were looking at. And then this is the one I was talking about, where the gear, look, this is all different things that they brought. These are their standards, their values. So we tried to then compartmentalize those. So for instance, you'll see there the very middle one has got things like words like collective, team player, trust, commitment, hardworking, everybody equal, playing field, not better than anyone else. Fantastic values, really, really good. But you can't go and have a team culture with 50 odd post-it notes on it. So we try to compartmentalize them. So we're trying to condense them into an overriding title that encompasses all those things within them. So we have, for that particular one, we've put team player. That means that everyone achieves together, that they're supportive, that there's a collective togetherness, that there's commitment and hard work, and that nobody's better than anybody else. All of that's encompassed within that title. They know what it means and they sign up for it. So that's the way of condensing it. And we've got other titles there like respect, positivity, work ethic, coachability, high standards, and you put all those together and everything that they encompass, and all of a sudden you've got something in the way of a roadmap to where you want to go. And we knew where we wanted to go. We wanted to be reaching our potential and be as successful as we could be. So we put all of those things down with a few of the more tangible things at the top, such as be punctual, have a positive attitude, be a team player, things like that. And we got everybody to sign up for it. And then we've got something that is really powerful. And this is year one, not this year past, but the year before. This is our code of conduct. What we've done is we condensed it even further last year, and it was buzzwords that encompassed, and maybe you look at 3 or 4 of those things and they're encompassed within one buzzword now. So we've condensed it right down to 3 or 4 or 5 different bullet points. But everybody knows what's in them, and we commonly unpack it all again, just so that everybody knows exactly. And then we use our scenarios just so everybody knows how to use the team culture. So that's how it looks. So in conclusion, and look, to be totally honest, a lot of this might be quite abstract to you, and it's going to be the questions at the end that gets to shape what you take from it. So if you have any questions, start to form them, start to get them in the forefront of your mind. So in conclusion, an agreed set of standards won't guarantee perfect conduct. That's a really important point, but it makes sure everyone knows what's expected. And sure, as long as there's clear guidelines, then it's less likely that something will go wrong. Believe me, in a team setting, when you're dealing with personalities and everybody being different, it's not a science. This is the art of dealing with people, and it's not a science. It's very much, relationship dependent, and building on these relationships is absolutely central to a good team culture. Even with that, things are going to go wrong. People will disrespect the culture somewhere along the lines, but it's really, really important that you've got your agreed values down and that assigned, because then you can take that back to the player. You can put the piece of paper in front of them on the table and say, look, your behavior doesn't fit into this, and you were one of the people that created it. So we need to get you back within this team culture that everybody's working in this one agreed direction. So we need to get you back into this. And if they can't fit into it, and believe me, with everybody here tonight, there will be players that you will come up in conflict with that will not be able to conform into a positive team culture, that they will be shaped by bad experiences. They might be just negative people, and it'll be really, really difficult to turn them. Sometimes it's better to say goodbye to those people and forge on regardless. That's what I would say, because there isn't a player above the team culture. The team culture is more important, and it must be, yes, adhered to, but even more importantly, it must be protected and fought for by the players. And when that happens, you've got a collective of people working in the right direction. The people that can't fit into that, you have to forge on. So that's the benefits of the team culture. Team culture employed throughout the ranks can encourage togetherness and club pride. Now, throughout the ranks, this is the difficulty. It's called team culture, not club culture, and it's a team setting. To create an overarching club culture can be a real challenge, because you're asking, a group of under sixes to adhere to something created by, a senior team, and it's really, really difficult to create a one-all overarching club culture. But what I would say is simplify it for the younger ones. Simplify for the younger ones, and I'll touch on this. There's a question afterwards, so I won't dwell on it too long now, but I'll answer it after. as to how best you can scaffold these values to make sure that they are usable at a younger level as well. But at the very start, we talked about trying to find themes that'll run throughout the club, that'll probably be unique to the club. Those are the important things to emphasize if you're making an overarching club structure. But the vast majority of what I've spoke about up to now is a team culture, as it is within a team setting. Again, high standards aren't for everybody. Excellence isn't for everybody. So, you know, you're going to, if what you're driving is an environment of self-betterment, and you're really ambitious in what you want to achieve, and you've got players that are driving that, and that's what they want, you're going to have some players within that bubble that don't want that, that don't want the commitment and dedication that it takes to achieve that. You'll probably lose them. And again, that is something that might be worth happening to ensure that the standards are even higher without them. And then you've got your younger players coming into that higher standard. And over the course of then a prolonged period of probably over a course of several seasons or years, then the real team culture is going to take root, and you're going to be a higher achieving club because of that. So don't bend your rules, don't drop your standards to appease people who aren't high achievers, because they need to conform, they need to raise their standards, and if they do that, then there's a place for them within it. Strive for progression, strive for better. Don't be looking for perfection. Okay, a lot of you will be starting within a place where perhaps there's bad habits, and if you try to just make everything perfect, like you're running a Barcelona or a Dublin or whatever it might be, it won't work. It is too much. But what you can do is you can improve, and you can find small progressions, and then those small progressions over a course of time can get you closer and closer to perfection. So don't be disappointed if it's not perfect straight away, but aim high. Okay, guys, that's everything really. I think Teresa may have a few pre-asked questions that we can touch on now, and then if we've got time afterwards, Teresa's the timekeeper here. If we've got time afterwards, then I'm sure we can ask a few as well, if that's something that we've got time. First of all, I'll invite Teresa to come back in now and just see if there's any questions you want to ask.
Excellent, Johnny. Well done. Well done. I think there was a lot of the whole talk and discussion around culture is a building process, and it takes time and that, and that very much evident came out. There was a lot of questions we got sent in, and some of them overlapped and some of them is the same sort of theme, so we've tried to put them all together, or put the themes together. But I'll start off with the first one, which you were touching on at the very end there. Can team culture be developed at under 6 level or at that young age?
Right, that's a brilliant question, and the answer is yes. Of course, it can be introduced at that age. And what I would suggest is that the younger that you implement it, the better, because what you want is you want sort of agreed values throughout the club that the various age groups are used to adhering to, so that by the time they get to senior level, that their mindsets are really strong, and that their habits are really good, and their values are really, really good values. And it's never too early to implement that. Now, you can of course do that on an individualized basis, where the under 6 manager himself or herself can just do a wee team culture workshop, and of course simplify it massively for the younger ones. And through that, then they can have some very broad values to which they adhere to, and it might be as simple as be happy, have fun, try hard, all those things. And then look, at the end of each session, you can ask them, okay, is everybody happy? And they'll say yes. Brilliant. Did everybody try their best? Well done. I definitely thought you tried your best. And what was the other one? Have fun. Did everybody have fun? And look, if you're an under 6 manager, that's what it's all about. And if everybody's face is smiling, sure, you've adhered to your 3 standards, and you've left everybody happy, and then everybody will come back, and that's just brilliant. Okay, but more than that, if it is that when they get to under 8 level and under 10 and you're getting up through the age groups, that be happy turns into real positive communication and positive body language, and then it becomes something more tangible, that you have already started that line of thinking. Now, if it is the other way around, that you're going to do it, that perhaps it's the senior team that have done the team culture seminar and workshop, and that they've created their code of conduct, and you want to sort of use some of those values and implement them at younger ages, so that that theme can run through the club, then a good way to think of it is that within your senior workshop, if you have come up with values such as teamwork, collaboration, communication, okay, trying to create an environment that people are allowed to express themselves and not afraid to make mistakes. So that could be several or one overarching value. Now, you could simplify that to under 6 level to say share. Now, if you're sharing, you're able to collaborate. And if you want to give them ownership of it, and again, even at that younger level, that's really important, that they are the driving force, that is player-led even at that age group, then you could scaffold it really, really easy by saying, should we share or not share? What should be our little value or little rule in this team? Should we be a sharing team or a non-sharing team? And I know that sounds really simplified, and you've scaffolded it in such a way that they are going to take your answer that you want them to take, but they take it, they've made it, it's their rule. So they're going to say, yeah, sharing's better, because that's what they're taught at home by mummy and daddy. Sharing's caring. Yeah, we'll be a sharing team. If it is the case where their rules within the senior setup is, we want to be positive, we want good body language, we don't want to be a team that back chats to the referee or get involved with spectators or opposition bench or whatever, that's the values that they want to adhere to, then to simplify them to, can we play with a smile or do we play with a frown? Now, you simplify it like that for an under 6 and they'll say, oh yeah, I want to play with a smile, that's much better. So all of a sudden then you've got that basic value that can be, dug down into a little bit deeper as they progress through the years, but you've got the value in there, and that's it. And then maybe if the senior values were a huge work rate and a massive focus and concentration when you're training in games, you could say at the under 6 level, okay, do you want to try your best or do you want to stop when it gets hard? And then, again, you'll have players or youngsters, you'll have them saying, yeah, we want to try our best. Brilliant. So our 3 values now are, we're a sharing team. This under 16 is a sharing team. It's a team that plays with a smile, and it's a team that tries their best. And those are 3 little values, but they chime exactly with the senior team's values, and they can be worked on and made slightly more intricate as you get up through the age groups, so that by the time they get into the senior team, it's automatic. Okay, so hopefully that's give you a few ideas. That one.
Excellent. And I must say, adding on to that, is there an element or a space there for parents within that young age group for around them values and implementing them?
Yes, of course, and it depends on what shape the parents are going to take. But like I said at the very start, when we were talking about inclusivity and making sure that everybody's part of it, if these parents are, parent helpers or volunteers who quite regularly will work with under 16s, under 6s, under 8s, under 10s, whatever, they come out and they stand at a cone and it might be a station or whatever. They're not coaches as such, but they're volunteers. Then they should be made to feel as part of the team culture that they're as important as everybody else, and that the values to which you're preaching and trying to implement within the team culture, those are values to which those parents absolutely have to reinforce and remind the players about. So absolutely. And look, when you're talking about young players at that age group, the more that you get parents involved, the better. And the more that they go home and try and continue on the practice with the children, the better. And if you've got a team culture and you get them ingrained in it, fantastic. It's really, really to be pushed, that one. Yeah.
Great stuff. I suppose maybe again looking at underage and young teams and that, I suppose any advice on building a culture of fun and participation as opposed to winning at all costs?
Yeah, and look, every club will have its own individual focus, and this is, as you know, Teresa, this is something a hot topic right now, because you're going to have some clubs, and there's some big clubs, and you talk about super clubs in Gaelic football, you know, your Currafins or your Slaughtneils or whoever it might be. Some of those have got a very much win at all costs culture ingrained throughout their club, and it works for them. And they come out the other side as senior champions regularly within their county and within their province. And then you'll have other clubs who simply don't care about winning at underage level, never mind under 6 or under 10. They don't care about minors or anything. All they want is players having fun, and as many as possible getting game time and full inclusivity. And what they do then is that provides a really strong basis for lots of players coming through their conveyor belt, and that works for them. Me, on a personal level, I would say that as young players, it's important for me, first and foremost, to be working on their skills, and most importantly, over and above everything else, is the fun element. If it's not fun, they won't come back. I can't stress that enough for the underage coaches amongst us today. And if the coaching isn't sort of cutting edge and all bells and whistles, it doesn't matter. They're out there and they're improving themselves by playing the sport. And as long as it's fun, they'll come back. And the more they come back, the better they'll get. And it's as simple as that. It really is. Now, of course, the better your coaches, the better your players will be. But for me, get them enjoying the sport and the club, and get them coming back in as many numbers as possible. Now, when you ask about how to implement that, you implement it within any other value. Like, for instance, if it was all about winning trophies, that would be one of your values, and you would put that in, and you would find a way to try to win the trophies. For me, that wouldn't be something we would look at. We've never even looked at. Yes, within the Fermanagh ladies, of course, we have overarching aims, but we're not obsessed with winning trophies. But we're obsessed with doing all the little things that's going to make us win trophies. About, of course, the adherence and protecting our team culture, about doing the right things with the ball more often, about being technically good, but physically strong and fit and fast, all those things. And we absolutely are obsessed with those things. And then the success comes. But whatever you want to ingrain in your children or athletes, put it in your team culture. That's your roadmap to making it happen.
Very good. I suppose the next question, again, you have touched on it throughout your presentation, but how best to deal with negativity or discontent by individuals or squad?
Yeah, really good. Now, is positivity part of your team culture? If it's not, then you've got no recourse for dealing with negativity. You've got a problem. But if you've got ingrained in your players, and if they've created a team culture that encompasses positivity, then you can say to the player, look, we need you to be more positive, because look, this is what you've signed up for. Positivity for me is one of those great intangible things that the benefits of it is immeasurable. Absolutely immeasurable, because you sometimes come across a player and say to yourself, that player can make everybody around them better. That's not talking about their ability or their technical skills or anything else, but they're an energy giver. And it's through positivity that that's the case. So for me, I put a huge focus and a huge premium on positivity. And what we try to do is we try to be energy givers all around the field, and it's contagious. And the same thing can be said for those negativity, positivity vampires who suck away the energy. You get 2 or 3 of them on the field, and they're complaining all the time and giving out. That there's nothing worse on a team to suck the energy away. So we certainly would have positivity front and center of our team culture, and from there reinforce it like crazy. And when you talk about reinforce, how do you reinforce something? Don't reinforce it when you're not doing it. So for instance, somebody's being negative, I wouldn't point the finger at them and shout, you're negative. Instead, I'm pointing the finger at the person who's showing really good demonstration of being positive, and I'm saying that is absolutely brilliant. Just stop for a second, everybody come in. Something just happened. Wait till you hear this. Everybody's seen that brilliant point, but this player praised that player for doing it. You know, something like that, where you can share in somebody's adhering to one of your core values. That's called positive reinforcement. It's much more effective than calling somebody out for doing something wrong. In the same way, if you're in a classroom full of children and there's two misbehaving, and you point the finger at those two children and say, you know, you have been so bold, what you'll probably find is there'll be another two behind them, and there'll be another two on the other side of the classroom, and they'll all be bold. But instead, if you're pointing the finger at, you know what, you're sitting lovely, you're reinforcing the positive behaviours in the classroom, all of a sudden then the negative ones will think, you know what, I want some of that. I want some of that praise, so I'm going to stop being bold. So positive reinforcement.
I suppose that kind of links into comment in the chat box, just an example of shaping your environment. So what you're talking about, highlighting the good things and pointing out the good things, as opposed to, and that's your environment you want to create.
Exactly. And when you say shaping your environment, it's really important that you've got a clear idea of where you want, what you want your environment to be. So, like I said from the outset, there's a team culture there in place, and it might be negative, or there might be negative elements to it. So have an idea of where you want your team culture to be going, and then from there shape it in that direction. And as I say, not your idea of where you want it to go to, but a shared collaborative idea of where you all want it to go to. What environment do you as players want to work in here? Do you want me standing over you, shouting and roaring and telling you what you're doing wrong? Or do you want an environment where you're not afraid to make a mistake because you're going to have somebody giving you good feedback, or you're going to have positivity and say, well done, great effort? That's a much nicer place to be. So if they identify that as players, as the environment that they want to be working in, then start to drive that. Start to, you know, of course, you shape your team culture around that. They sign up for it, and then you reinforce those values over time.
Very good. I have another question here now that came in during the week, and it's a two-part one. Who do you feel are the key drivers in maintaining team culture, and can you soften it sometimes for a few players to keep them?
Brilliant. Okay, this is where you have to be harsh or hard or uncompromising in a way. You have to make a decision. Are you going to put your team culture above everything else? And that's not always an easy thing to do. And it may be that there's short-term pain for long-term gain. So especially if there, you know, it is a negative environment that you're starting out in, it might be that there'll be people walking away. It could be your best players walking away. But you have to ask yourself, are you willing to make this sacrifice so that you've got a positive team culture long term? So my answer to softening your standards or your values is a resounding no. You can't do it. You have to hold and uphold the values in which the players have agreed to and created themselves. That has to be over and above any one player or any few players. Don't lower your standards. The one thing that shouldn't change is your standards, because this is your roadmap to dealing with problems. And if you're dealing with there has to be consistency. And if you're thinking to yourself, oh, you know what, they're a good player, let's let them away with that wee slip up. No, look, they've made the standards. They have to adhere to them, and when everybody does that, they'll start fight for the standards, and they'll be dealing with the discrepancies, not you as a manager when you've got it working really well. You know, that's not how we do things around here. Brilliant thing to hear in your group. What was the first part of that question again, Teresa?
Who do you feel are the key drivers in maintaining team culture?
Okay, the key driver, certainly facilitator, really is going to be the manager in the setting, or the coach, whoever might be sort of in charge of the group. They facilitate it, they put the things in practice, and they certainly reinforce the values to which everybody's agreed to. But the key drivers have to be the players. They're the ones who have created this notion, and they have to be the ones to protect it. So for me, I would aim, certainly, and it's not always the case, and there's plenty of twists and turns in any road, but I would certainly aim to give the players ownership of it by way of, you know, your leadership group or your captains or whoever it might be, or just your players in general might be the ones that'll say, look, that's not how we do things around here. Like, we have a higher standards of ourselves. Let's sort that out. Don't be doing that. So they might be doing that. But look, again, it could come back on you at some point, and you'll have to deal with indiscrepancies. But that's why you've got these values here, so you can deal with them effectively. I stress again, don't lower your standards. They're not yours to lower. This is something bigger than you as a manager. It's bigger than any player in the team. This is something bigger. This is a collective team culture that everybody adheres to, or else doesn't. But if they don't, then they can't be part of it. That's my personal the way I would look at it.
I suppose along a similar theme, and maybe you've answered it. Jonathan's asking online: is there a metric for measuring if a culture is good, or is this just winning?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. Look, if winning is part of your values, then winning might be a way to measure it. But I wouldn't winning as there's so many different elements to winning and losing. There can be successes in losing, and there can be failures in winning. So let's not use that as a stand whatsoever. In terms of a metric for measuring the team culture, I suppose it depends what the values are. For instance, if your values are that you don't give up, that you never stop, that you're you're just relentless in your work rate, and you never give up toward the end of a game, if you're behind but you come back and win, and you do that regularly, I think that's a real indication that that particular value, that your team culture is strong. If it's a case where you're trying to create a positive atmosphere and everybody's really, really happy and everybody gets on well and there's a lot of positivity in the group, then you can see that, then that's a metric for saying that would be something that's working really well. Yeah, I would say that if the thing is working individual of you and you're not sort of having to drive it all the time, but the players are leading it a lot more, that's a really good sign as well. That's a metric that is working. But ultimately, it depends what you want to get from your team culture and where you want it to take you. And if you're going down that road, then you'll know you're on the right track.
That's great, Johnny. We've just went over there slightly now, but I think we'll wrap it up at that. Firstly, thank you, Johnny, for the very insightful presentation. And it was remiss of me not to congratulate you on your recent All-Ireland winning title, and the ladies as well, the girls. So well done and congratulations on that achievement. It was fantastic and well needed for the county in the current times. Just to our club coaches and everyone who is logged on, and coaching officers, thank you for taking the time to log on and listen. The recording will be going up online, and I'll email the link out to everybody who has joined us, and as I say, we'll put the link up online as well. And again, if any club coaches need any support or help, or that, you've Johnny's contact details there. You also should have my contact details and any of our other coaches, Keith, Virgil, Sean and Owen. So hopefully in the new year, give us a shout, and we'll be only too happy to set something up or organise or have a chat with you. Just to wish everyone a peaceful and safe and healthy and happy Christmas. And thank you. Thank you, Johnny.
Thanks very much. Thank you. Thanks everybody for logging in.